Hello, everyone.
Hi. Oh, wow. That was fast.
Yeah.
I think I entered the show with a yawn. That's a good sign.
Welcome, everybody, to
Hello.
Crimes Against Folk. I'm Edward Williams,
I'm Ashley E. Norton.
and happy that you're joining us today. Sorry we're late, and this stream's probably not going to be great. I'm having some issues on my end, and I have no idea where they're coming from. So we'll just have to kind of struggle through it together, as we do.
Yep.
So first, again, I want to reiterate, we have a Patreon now, and you can sign up at patreon.com/crimesagainstfolk, and our audience has grown today, so thank you to everybody who showed up to our pre-show.
Yay.
And again, we want to thank our folks in the producer circle, the Alice Williams, for supporting us and helping us. We want to thank all of our patrons for supporting us, so you can be part of that group too if you check out our Patreon.
Just $5 a month, and you'll get to watch a weekly pre-show concert. It's just 4 or 5 songs,
Yep.
Which will be different every single week, and also you can request them. So it's just a little bit and that's per month, not per week. $5 per month to watch us do a little 20-30-minute show before the podcast starts. So we wanted to make that option really affordable because we wanted as much of you to join the concert as possible, but we really are excited and looking forward to building our Patreon community, especially in the podcast world. It's like it's the cool thing to do. So we're just trying to be cool, get y'all to kind of convert over there, but that price isn't going to go up. So it's $5 a month. That's it, just to watch the show plus other bonus features. You can pledge more if you like, and you will get more bonus features. But we think that's the most enticing one is our music, but maybe not.
Well, you can check it out and decide for yourself.
Yeah.
Where you'd like to support us at, and we appreciate anything, really. We're just glad you're here.
Absolutely. If you don't have anything to give, please continue watching us here. Please, 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 because this is the main deal, and we're happy to have you as listeners and viewers.
Yep.
Yeah.
Today, our guest is Auntmama Moorman. She is a very gifted storyteller out of Seattle, Washington. And again, this is continuing with our Far West Month theme. We met her at Far West, and she's just kind of a incredible force of a person. It's really wonderful to get to know her, and she tells just the most incredible stories, and you will get to hear that firsthand later on in the show. And also later on, we're going to talk a little bit about some tips for networking. And I know it's a little weird, again, since we're not having a conference this year, but these tips can apply whether you're at a conference or online. They can help either way.
Yep.
So, stick around for that. And, it should be a good one today.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have Auntmama on. She's one of my favorite people that I met at Far West, and also one of our biggest cheerleaders, which always makes me feel so good every time I see her. She just has the nicest things to say about us and our hard work, and again, her stories are absolutely incredible. She's so articulate. And she also has a radio show that's really cool that we'll be talking about as well.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. So, all right, we'll get going here with our show and tell.
Yay.
And I think it's your turn this week, and we were filming the bonus show and tells for this month for our patrons, and we were just kind of going through a bunch of photos that you sent me, and there was one that was like, oh wait, let's do that one for the podcast. I'm like, yeah, that sounds cool.
Yeah, one of our tier options on Patreon is to get bonus stories and show and tell features. Because honestly, Ed and I just have endless amounts of stories that we can tell from our 5 years on tour that we spent on full-time tour. So we were trying to find some stories specifically from Far West, since it is Far West month, and we came across this one, and I was like, oh, this can't be a bonus story.
Yeah,
this has got to be like a main story on the main show so everyone can hear it, because it's just, to me, it's really, really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So I will throw up the photo there, and so this is Ash and I with our friend Rob Ellen in the center, and in a kind of a funny little decorated room.
Which is actually an
RV. Yep.
So it's called the Moose Mobile. Moose
Mobile. Yep.
I don't know. Moose Mobile? I don't know what you're going to say. But basically, Rob has two Moose Mobiles. One is settled in Scotland, where he lives, and the other one is in Canada. And he drives, or drove. I mean, I'm assuming he's on a hiatus like the rest of us from touring around. But he would basically tour around in this thing, meeting up with different musicians all around the UK and the rest in Europe, and in this Moose Mobile there, and then also Canada. And he would come down to the USA and back, and it's part of his business. So he has artists that will also kind of rent this thing out from him, so they can go on tour themselves in the Moose Mobile. So there's different options, but basically, we got in touch. This history between Rob Ellen and us runs deep and across many states and countries.
Yeah.
Which is really cool, and all kind of accidentally. I can't remember how I heard about him in the first place. I think.
Do you think it might have been David Connolly?
I think it might be through him, because he was our concert host in Litchfield, and good friend, and he always has great ideas for us. David Connolly is always messaging us and saying, oh, you need to meet this person and meet that person, and oh, they have this great relationship with this thing, and you should consider doing that. So I think he sent it to me, and it's called, and Rob Ellen runs this Facebook group called name is escaping me. I just had it and it's gone. European Concert Hub. And it's a place where you can go specifically for Americans to find places to play around Europe, and vice versa, I think, too. I think a lot of Europeans can go on and kind of connect with American artists and do like a bit of a switch. So I thought this was a great group to join while we were planning our European tours, and it did, I can't remember the specifics, but I think it did help us out a little bit here and there. So I messaged Rob Ellen, because I was like, I think this is somebody we should get to know, and he was really, really nice. And he said, sometimes I do come to the United States, and in fact, I'm going to be coming to meet up with a dear friend of mine to have her on my Moose Mobile show. Moose Mobile. Why can't I say this? Moose Mobile show in Denver. And this was like probably 3 years ago. And maybe 4 even. No, about 3. Whatever. Anyway, timeline. Who even knows what day it is anymore? I guess we know it's Sunday because we're doing this podcast, but regardless. So Rob was coming to Denver, and it just so happened that Ed and I were going to Denver too. Now, we do tour through Denver a lot, so this chance meeting was kind of random, but also not for us because we're in Denver all the time. And I was like, well, we have a show and you have a show, but why don't we meet up and like have a coffee and kind of chit chat a little bit? And he's like, yeah, and you can meet my my friend. Oh, what was her name? It's okay. It's going to come to me. You can meet my friend and you can listen to her interview, and then maybe we'll do an interview with you guys another time, blah, 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 blah. So we had planned on meeting Rob in Denver, and he was coming down from Canada when all of a sudden there was a major snowstorm in Canada. And so he couldn't get the car down because it was just impossible to drive through, especially in that RV. So he didn't make it. He messaged me. He's like, oh, I guess we'll just get together another time. No worries, Rob. We did a little online thing for him one time and just kind of stayed in touch. So anyway, Ed and I had decided that we were going to plan a show at the Walnut Room in Denver, maybe a year later. It's a great concert venue. The Walnut Room is absolutely beautiful. It's definitely a bring your own crowd kind of a place. So if you don't have a big following in Denver, it's not recommended to play there. So we have an okay following in Denver, not enough to fill the room. So we pulled in 2 other artists to help us out with that on the show, which ended up being a really, really fun show with 2 other lady-fronted bands. One being, come on, Ed.
I only remember Teresa Storch.
That's the one I'm thinking of. That is Rob Ellen's friend, Teresa Storch. Oh, I'm sorry, brain. You've been failing me. So Teresa's on the gig. We show up to do the gig with Teresa. In walks in Rob Ellen. And we're like, okay, well, I guess we are destined to meet after all, because neither of us knew we were going to be there. I mean, I'm making it a little bit more dramatic than it was. I think we did figure out before he arrived and kind of message each other before him, but it was
we just weren't sure he was going to show up. Like, you're never sure somebody's going to show up, especially if you've tried to connect and it just hasn't happened, regardless of what the reason was.
Right. But apparently Teresa and Rob are, in fact, really good friends. So, in fact, I think he was staying with them. So anyway, we had a great show and a great time with Rob. And we said, well, he said, yeah, I'm touring around the country and I'm probably going to end up at Folk Alliance eventually, blah, 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 blah. And we said, are you going to Far West next week? Because we're going to Far West next week. And he's like, no, what's Far West? And I said, well, and if you guys have listened to the episode last week, you now know that Far West is the Western Regional Chapter of Folk Alliance, which is a conference for folk musicians. And it's really fantastic. We've been promoting it because we love it. Like every conference, it's on hiatus this year and possibly next. But there is stuff going on. So anyway, we said, Rob, you have to go to Far West. You're in town. He's like, I think I'm going to be in LA. And we're like, well, that's where it is. So anyway, we get to Far West rather the next week. We're not really sure if Rob ended up getting in or not, but all of a sudden in walks Rob. So, hey Rob, so that's where this photo is from, because Rob, and he was so thankful that we told him about it because he had the best time, and we know lots and lots of musicians that ended up connecting with Rob, and he does help book people on shows, especially in Scotland. So we ended up doing a little interview with Rob from the Moose Mobile. Oh, this is so hard. I just call it MM. From MM, we did an interview, which is that photo that you see there, and it was a really good time. In fact, God, Ed, we should find that interview, and song is online somewhere.
Oh yeah, it's got to be around somewhere.
Yeah, I don't know why I didn't think about sharing that for today's video, but maybe we'll share it another time, or we'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah.
And that's where we decided that, and we told Rob, yeah, we're coming to England this summer. And he said, well, why don't you take a little jaunt up to Scotland and play at the festival that I'm helping put together, because I'm booking one of the stages there. And we said, absolutely. So then we showed up this summer and we walked in, and there's Rob Ellen in Scotland. And we had an awesome time at the festival. In fact, he even booked us on a little post show, and we ended up connecting with another friend, Jess Wayne, was at the festival as well, and had a great time with them. So this is just again, the back to the Far West thing, which is one of the reasons we love it so much, because their slogan is Far West Connects. And here is, even though we didn't meet Rob through through Far West, we knew him through other avenues. It all links together, and we wouldn't have played the Scotland Festival if we didn't see him at Far West, and as well as other people who attended the festival who got to go. So it's just one of the cool things, one of the cool stories that's come out of that, that kind of trails much further than we
Yeah.
originally intended.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but yeah, that's how we finally met Rob Ellen, and just the craziest. I mean, it's just funny how he just managed to kind of finagle his way into Far West
Oh
as
yeah,
press, and
yeah, he got
basically
press pass.
parked the Boost-mobile in the back of the hotel.
He convinced them to let him park there for free, I think.
Yeah, uh-huh.
He's just like one of those guys that just gets stuff figured out.
Yeah.
He
Yeah,
just
it's pretty
figures it
amazing.
out and makes it all work together somehow. It's really interesting.
Yeah, it's amazing how he did it, but yeah, he managed to do it.
Yep.
So yeah, that was a really cool memory. That was fun. We got to meet who was that with him too? There was somebody traveling with him.
Ruthie,
Ruthie, yeah,
amazing
Ruthie.
singer-songwriter.
Yeah, she's awesome.
Yeah.
And we've connected with her on occasion as well.
Yep.
But yeah, it was really fun. It was glad we're just kind of happy we were able to get him in, and so he was able to kind of meet a bunch of really cool musicians that he's hopefully helped, which I think is the most fun part about Far West is being able to be able to connect and reconnect with people. So
Yeah.
um,
For sure. And the festival doing well, the festival was cool. I mean, it was a huge festival. Like Ed and I are used to playing, some smaller festivals in England.
Yeah.
So you just kind of show up and you park and you walk in and there's one big stage and that's where you play. And we've done a few of those. That summer though, we did some bigger festivals and we just weren't quite expecting it. So this was the first big one we played, and for some reason we were under the impression that it was a small festival. So we were like, oh, we'll just arrive like an hour beforehand. First of all, finding parking was impossible. There were 20,000 people there or something.
oh,
I mean, it was
at least.
a huge festival. Like huge. When you
Yeah.
think big festival, like Coachella style,
Or,
this was
Isle of Wight or something.
yeah, this was on the lines of that.
Yeah.
Which was kind of exciting, but very stressful getting to our stage on time, which we did make it to. And of course, the one bummer is we started our set, and we got to see Teresa Storch there as well because she was also on the stage, I think, right after us. But we played one song. And we started gathering a little bit of a crowd because that's kind of how it works at these festivals. If you're not on the main stage, like you kind of have to play and you'll catch people's ear, and then they'll stop and they'll come and listen to your set and stick around and buy CDs after or whatever. So you really have to start playing to get your crowd. So people started to gather, and then all of a sudden there was this major skateboarding event that was happening off in the near distance. And this announcer guy just decided he wanted more people to show up to his event than ours, and just absolutely cranked his sound, and all he was doing was talking like, oh, look at him doing the trick on the thing and flipping. Oh, he's amazing. Best skateboarder, blah, blah, blah.
So obnoxious.
It was so obnoxious. It lasted through our entire set. It finished just about when we did, and we were kind of disheartened.
Yeah.
But it was cool because we got to do the post show, and we got a really good slot in the post show. And Ed and I think because people couldn't really hear us, there was this real fire under us to like make an impression,
Yeah.
and we just let it all out, and he gave an incredible performance to the point where people were coming up to us being like, yeah, I couldn't really hear you yesterday, so I'm glad you guys came back today.
Yeah.
But it was all part of the experience, right?
Yep. So that was kind of neat to have that whole experience with Rob, and what a super cool guy. He's a really nice dude. So
Yeah.
yeah, real fun times.
Yeah.
Um, all right, so next we'll share one of our vids. This is again from our showcase at Far West 2019, and we are doing a cover this time. Did we only do one cover?
We did only
I
one.
think only one cover.
Yeah.
And so we decided to kind of take advantage of the audience that we had there and the fact that we do loads of Simon and Garfunkel songs all the time. And so we're going to show you a highlight from the showcase at Far West 2019 where we play The Sound of Silence.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again. Because a vision softly creeping left its seeds while I was sleeping. And the vision that was planted in my brain still remains within the sound of silence. In restless dreams I walked alone, narrow streets of cobblestone, beneath the halo of a street lamp. I turned my collar to the cold and damp. When my eyes were stabbed by the flash of a neon light, it split the night and touched the sound of silence. And in the naked light I saw 10,000 people, maybe more. People talking without speaking, people hearing without listening, people writing songs that voices never share, and no one dared disturb the sound of silence. Fool, said I, you do not know. Silence like a cancer grows. Hear my words that I might teach you. Take my arms that I might reach you. But my words, like silent raindrops, fell and echoed the rails of silence. And the people bowed and prayed to the neon god they made. And the sign crashed out its warning in the words that it was calling. And the sign said the words of the prophets are written on the subway walls and tenement halls. Whispered the sound of silence.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you guys. That's Edward Williams.
Ashley Norton.
All right. So that was our performance of The Sound of Silence. and that was at the Far West show, the main showcase in 2019. We showed one of those last week as well, when we did one of our original songs, and that was pretty fun. So
Yeah.
so yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm getting my stuff going on here. All right.
It's juggling too many things today.
Well, too many things are just breaking today, so
Yeah.
that's the main problem.
My electric guitar broke this week too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, just the jack. I mean, it should be a pretty simple fix, but my point is everything's breaking.
Everything's breaking. Yep. So next we'll bring on. Let me just see if we can bring on our guest. And our guest today, as mentioned, is Auntmama. She's again a wonderful storyteller out of the Pacific Northwest. We met her at Far West. Did we meet her at the? That was at the that showcase we played the first year, right? Was that where we met her?
The New Voices room?
Yeah, the New Voices room.
I think so. I can't remember.
Because she felt bad about mispronouncing her name.
Oh, right. Oh no, it was the coffee, the Mills coffee house thing.
House, yep.
Yeah. Yeah. And, yeah, everyone pronounces our name wrong. It's,
Yeah.
it just happens. But yeah, she introduced us at that, and that's how she got introduced to us is from there. Yeah.
So yeah, we're gonna give her a call, and let's make sure this works here. Yes, thank you, Millsap's Coffee House.
Yes.
Hello,
Hello.
I am here.
you are there.
I am there.
There you are.
Hey, Ash, how are you?
I'm good. It's nice to hear your voice again.
Well, it's always nice to hear you all. Is there a little button where you get to see everybody? Or
I'm gonna try. We don't, since we're doing a special stream setup. It's a little tricky, but I'm gonna do this.
why are we doing a special stream setup?
Sometimes I ask myself that.
Just curious.
But yeah, this way I can control the audio and video. I can bring in Ash, and there you are.
Hey.
And now everybody's here. It may be a little delay, but that's just kind of how we have to deal with that. So, let me fix.
How are you going to deal with having an outage if we really have an outage?
I can just give you a call.
Okay.
If the phone, hopefully the phones are still up where you are. But
Well, it's a cell phone, so it should be.
Okay.
They did go out at one point about an hour. Ashley, you can hear me, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So there's a storm coming off the Bering Sea.
Oh.
And you all think that I'm kidding about being a hillbilly, but it's really not joking. And I really do live in rural. I live on a reservation.
oh,
I live on the Scallum Port Gamble reservation, and a piece of land that they sold. So
Oh, cool.
yeah, so like I'm in the middle of nowhere, but there's a casino nearby,
Yeah.
and there's a Port Gamble right across the street. So
What more do you need?
well, I don't have time to go out and start the generator. I mean, it would be really funny, I think, if you have a weird sense of humor, as I do. Excuse me, I have to go start the generator so that we can. Let's use this high-tech thing, but first of all, I have to start. I have to go rub some sticks.
That'll be a first here on Crimes Against Folks.
Yeah.
So we're all for it.
I wish to. Well,
Well, I mean, I guess a storm's kind of good because you guys need some rain up there, don't you?
as you do, not like you all do.
well, yeah.
sure. I mean,
That's
we
for
all need
sure.
rain, but I always feel a little, well, like we're hoarding it up here. You know, we're
Right.
running a little water.
I'll come get
And
some from you.
I put a huge septic tank in the ground yesterday. Uh, Now, why would I be telling you that? I would be telling you that because I put it down by the barn, and I did that so that I can have an apartment and then a small area where artists could stay, like as a
Ah.
residence.
Oh, cool.
And then there would be a stage,
Oh, wow.
and
Oh,
it's a multi-use barn, and then the doors would open in the summertime, and it would be a outdoor uh, well, be a house concert, except be a barn concert, and you could go out into the field and have a field concert. So,
Yeah, we've done those before. We did that in Germany, basically.
yeah, because I
yeah.
don't have anything else to do in the middle of a pandemic other than to put in a septic system and remodel a barn. What else do we do?
Yeah,
I
exactly.
love it. I love. I mean, I live out in the country. Brad and I moved out to the country, so we're like 45 minutes inland from San Diego, and we love living out in the middle of nowhere. It's the only issue is the Wi-Fi. I wish we had better Wi-Fi. We don't have very good Wi-Fi, but it's so cool to like just be around so much nature and walk out your front door and have just miles and miles of open space. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
So your Wi-Fi is not good right now.
That's why, yeah, mine's always the one that's causing issues. Actually, I'm pretty sure Ed's having the technical issues
Yeah,
today,
they're different things for me, but yeah.
but it's typically me. I'm typically the problem, so I'm taking it for the fact that I'm not for once and just holding on to it with everything I've got.
I'm so glad it's you all and not me. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, no, you're perfect. Yours is fine.
Yeah, we're the problem.
Um,
Good. It can be y'all's. I don't mind if it's y'all's.
um,
Well, is Jeanette here?
Jeanette's
she
here,
is.
yeah.
Hey, Jeanette, can she hear us?
Should be able to. Yeah, I mean the stream's kind of cutting in and out, but yeah, she should be able to hear you.
Regardless, we'll have the replay up on our podcast format on Spotify, iHeartRadio, and iTunes, and all of that on Tuesday. So
Yep.
if anyone can't hear us very well or is frustrated with the amazing quality of today's show, you will definitely be able to hear the replay just fine. So we'll make sure to post that everywhere. So
Yep,
we're pushing through.
we're pushing through.
So Jeanette will have to write all intelligent things about Far West and dates and links and good. Okay, excellent. So she will be the pesky gremlin. Be the pesky gremlin. Yay, yes, doing all of those important things.
That's what Ed always calls it. He's always called it the gremlins.
Yep, they're all gremlins.
Yeah, whenever you have any kind of technical difficulties, you can always blame it on the gremlins.
Ghost and the gremlins. Is the slight hissing noise Ash's Wi-Fi system?
I don't know. I'm not sure. It could be.
Is everybody else seeing audio levels at the bottom of the screen?
No,
Or
just
am I-
you.
Just me.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
So
Should I pay attention to them? I say I should. Okay. That's a lot to pay attention to, Ed.
He does
tell
this
me
quite a
about
bit.
it.
Hey, you did this to
Well, you're
yourself.
smart.
I did.
I've made my point clear. You are smarter than I am. You understand these things better than I do.
Somebody was asking me recently, like, "Oh, well, you've had all this experience with Jamulus, and how's that working for you? And how, I mean, how do you think that we did? Because they just tried it." And I was like, I think that's a question for Ed. I just press the start button. He makes everything work.
I think that sounds right.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah,
You
that works.
never said you were an engineer, Ashley. I never heard you say those words.
Say what's that?
I never heard you tell anybody you were an engineer.
No, and I am not going to try and pretend like I am. That's all Ed. I know nothing. Although I feel like all of us we've been forced into this new role of like having to figure out something, right? Like I do have, for the first time in my life, I own an interface and I own, the studio, the small basic studio setup that I have now, so I can record vocals and make little demos and things like that from home. And I think, Mama, you're doing your radio show again. You had to do quite a bit of that, I think.
But I cry when I do it. It never happens without, tears. Sometimes I don't throw things, but I feel like throwing. I see myself hurling things through the air. But I don't. I so far I have refrained, and I'm pretty big on, you know, Mom Hen always is so much more advanced in social media and everything, and I wish that she would just do this and take care of it because I don't have it.
Yeah, she
But
really
it doesn't
is.
matter, does it? Because we have to do it.
We have to figure out something because otherwise it's
Yeah.
just gonna go away. Because we're online right now, and even if things start opening up again, which they will, I don't think I think online life is here to stay. I think we're going to see a bigger mix of the two than ever, when venues and things like that open up.
Yeah, I think so.
I think you're right, and I think that in some ways right now there's too much. There's an excess of riches.
Mm-hmm.
There are the 3 podcasts or 2 streaming things that I could not do right this minute because we're doing this, and
Right.
and I
Yeah.
want to support that, and there is a limited amount of resources and renewable resource. Like time is not a renewable resource,
Mm-hmm.
and download later does not make it renewable because even though we can see things later, we don't always have any more time later than we have now.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I want to support every artist. I want to hit click on every patron. I want to, but what I can do is build a stage. That
There
I
you
can
go.
do. I know how to put in a septic tank. Believe it or not, it's just,
I'm
there are
impressed.
things I know how to do. How many people want to be out on a reservation? See, there's that. There are all these other complexities to figuring things out.
Yeah.
But I miss you all. See, Ed, I look at you smile and I go, oh, I miss you. I miss you. I miss you all. And I still have my purple bag.
Yay.
The purple bag.
Purple bag, which made me. I think that was the first thing I loved about you all was the purple bag.
It worked. Bribery.
Yep.
Smart.
We're going to
was
cover
smart.
that in our networking tips and tricks section today.
Yeah.
I miss you too, Aunt Mama.
Yeah.
I really do. And I miss Ed.
Yeah.
God, I would imagine.
Yeah.
So this technology that you're using, you all can sing and play together and not have lag?
Mostly.
Yeah.
It kind of depends on internet quality, which is really, again, kind of dicey.
But it works pretty well. I
Yeah.
mean, more. Yeah. We definitely make it work. I think it's just kind of off by a hair, if anything. So.
Mhm.
But we have lag on this call. We have visual lag, right?
Yeah, there's video stuff is a little harder to resolve, but yeah, that I can kind of take care of on the back end, but it just depends on how bad it is and if the stream's not behaving like it's not today, then then it's a little tougher to resolve. But that's how it goes.
So, Mama, tell us more about your radio show. Number 1, how we can listen to it. Number 2, how you're making it work in the
Yeah.
pandemic.
My radio show is available to anybody in the world if they go to kvcm.org. and something will come up that says programs, and you go to Sunday Folks, and there I will be. And I will be doing some shows, and a man named Mike Biggins will be doing other shows. And if you go there, you will hear a 3-hour show, which you can turn off and on because it's up for 2 weeks. The FCC allows radio stations to have archives up for 2 weeks.
Oh.
Yeah, so we can do that. And so you don't have to listen to all of 3 hours at one time, which is a lot.
Yeah.
And if you do tune in, and you will always hear somebody from Far West.
Oh.
You'll always hear a group or two groups or somebody, and you will hear people that you know, whether it's really old like Joni Mitchell or really old like the Carter sisters and Maybelle Carter, and people that we have at Alice Gerard and
Wow.
Tom Pickle. And then there will be Witherward that nobody's heard of, but then they hear of. And,
Oh, that's great.
Then we'll go back to Kate McLeod, who everybody's heard of, unless you happen to be 27 years old and you've never heard of Kate McLeod. You have no idea who that is. And the Far West Conference, the meeting with Dan Navarro. Everybody knows Dan Navarro unless you've never heard of Dan Navarro. So one of the things about radio that I don't always succeed, but I try to remember is play songs that are sing-alongs, but sing-alongs are generational. And sing-alongs, about every decade, there are new sing-alongs. Okay, so let me ask you, if I said to you, Ed, what's a sing-along? Tell me a sing-along that you would think of.
A sing-along?
Yeah, a song that you would, well, you're a musician, so.
A song that I would sing along to?
Yeah.
Oh, geez. Probably, what do I sing along to? There's so many different things that I would sing along to.
Simon and Garfunkel.
Yes. Anything Simon and Garfunkel I would sing along to. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So Simon and Garfunkel. All right. So that's good. So we do Simon, but is Simon and Garfield folk or is Simon and Garfield pop?
I would say they're folk, but I think they tried to be pop at one point based on their production.
Yeah, based on the production and also the times, I think 60s and 70s in particular, like that was kind of pop music for the time because it was popular.
Mm-hmm.
But it was, and now we know it as folk because it wouldn't be considered popular music. Now we hear pop, now we think Katy Perry, so it's not going to fall under that genre. But yeah, I think maybe if you did ask at the time, it had or folk had a different kind of meaning to it.
I really dislike the genre question. I think it's a false dichotomy and it's like all the other false lines that we draw around ourselves and things. But radio stations have been doing this for years. Spotify does it. It's still being done, and it puts, for those of you who are musicians, it puts you in a box.
Yeah.
And it's going to happen to you. And so my radio show is, I always call it the roots and tangles of roots music. And, Kansas is not Central America. There's a whole country that's called Central America, a whole mess of places. And there's folk music there too. So all of a sudden I went, why is folk music music's bigger than that? Simon and Garfunkel I think they're folk-ish. They are folk. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I think Simone is folk, and Joan Armatrading is folk. But one's in the blues section, and one's in the jazz section, one's in the pop section. And when I grew up, we had radio, and one station would play gospel, and the same station would play Ricky Nelson. And that would be the station that played Flatt and Scruggs. And that would be the same station that played Elvis when he came along, or Nanette Febvre, who you probably don't even remember. But we had like two stations in town, and
Yeah.
it played every. So we all listened to everything. And now you have to deal with this amazing. Well, I don't know how any musician is dealing with everything you have to deal with, but to go back as I wander away from any question or anything, to Ashley's question, what I try to do on the radio is it's very intersectional. I play intersection of music and generations and diversity, and try to have as much. I try to get people who really want to hear Hazel Dickinson to hold on and hear With a Word. I try to get people who want to hear um, somebody else
Yeah.
who came out, Avid Brothers. Somebody who wants to hear the Avid Brothers. Could I get them to hold on and listen to a little bluegrass?
Yeah.
Can I, and how do I talk them in? Or come back? Because there's just the natural thing. Everybody's busy. You can't just hang on every word on a radio station.
Well, it's
And
it's interesting you say that about about like what is folk music. I watched a video by a great YouTuber named Adam Neely. He's this incredible musician, and he was talking basically about how modern music theory is basically taught from the lens of Western European uh, viewpoints. And it completely ignores things like, well, what about North Indian viewpoints, or what about South American viewpoints, or Afro-Cuban viewpoints? Like, that's all. Are those not music theory because they're not German? Like, it's kind of like, it was a really interesting video. And I think, so to go back to your thing about folk music, like, yeah, I guess we could say maybe Simon and Garfunkel is like American folk music or American pop folk music. And then that way we can still allow in more influences from South America and more influences from Russia or wherever.
I think they are you all fans of Shea Appalachia?
I'm not familiar.
Not familiar.
Um, Look up Picking for Progress. Picking for Progress.
Oh,
The group is named Shea Appalachia. Joe Troop is the one who started it. He'd be a North Carolina boy. And he went to Argentina. And he met up with some musicians, and they have sort of combined Carolina music with Argentinian music, and
Ooh.
it's great, I think. And
Wow.
he decided to sit out COVID instead of going back to Argentina. He went. I think he's in Greensboro.
Okay.
Guess where Rhianna Giddens is from? Greensboro, North Carolina. Yeah. And so he thought he could be of better service in North Carolina, getting people to vote, getting on immigration rights.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's doing a YouTube series, and it's called Picking for Progress. I make no money from this whatsoever. Again, it's what I do on the radio, is how can I bring this to as many people as possible.
Yeah.
It's Shea Appalachia was in the Northwest doing the Wintergrass Festival. And we started playing them a lot on radio, and I try to play them as much as I can. And I think what he's doing in a time of COVID it truly is a wonderful thing for him to be doing. And I heartily recommend. I think you'll laugh and smile, and I don't know, maybe you'll learn a new tune or two.
Yeah, that's great. I'd love to. It's fun to kind of expand your horizons, especially as far as folk music goes, because there's so much out there that you can draw inspiration from, like from other countries or from other, even just somebody playing down the street. You can pull information from, So
Yeah.
Do you all know a guy named Mike Block, Block, who is a cello player?
It sounds familiar.
Yeah, I don't.
he's been around. He's very, very good. He plays his cello hanging over his neck like a large guitar. And he did a thing with the Wintergrass is doing this thing called Wintergrass Music Festival is doing a thing called Pocket Grass, which is a digital form of it's a variety show, and Mike Block and an East Indian man named Sandy Stop
Mm.
play together. So it's cello with various kinds of rhythm instruments and drum like percussion, and it is amazing.
Mm.
So people who thought they were going to hear bluegrass hear this whole other thing, and people who didn't go to listen because they thought it was going to bluegrass missed this whole thing.
Yeah.
And then for the next episode, we had Nephish Mountains, Nephish Mountains, and that's Jewish bluegrass.
I
Oh,
love it.
right.
It's like the Carpathian
I love it already.
I adore this. It feels like, okay, my life, something good has happened in bridging our culture. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
We know a
much
guy named Saul Kay who was doing Jewish blues for a long time. I don't know if that's still his genre because he's kind of switched genres throughout his career. But at the last time we saw him, that's what he was doing. I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah.
How do you spell it?
Saul Kay, Saulkaye.
Yeah, I'll type it in chat there.
Yeah, I'm not sure what he's doing anymore. If he's still even doing music, but yeah, he showed up to my apartment in Nashville one night. I think it was like my birthday, and my mom was in town, my mom and my stepdad, and I invited Ed over and a few people, and Saul K hit me up and he's like, "Hey, I'm in Nashville." I was like, "Hey, come on over. I'm having a birthday party." And so he came over, and like we did in Nashville all the time, we used to sit in little songwriter circles no matter where we were, and we would just trade off songs, especially if I was having a little mini party at my house. And he came over and we were doing that, and he took his turn and he played us Jewish blues, and it was it was blues music, and the content of the lyrics in particular were Jewish related lyrics, like history. It was really interesting, and
Yeah.
he was a fantastic musician at the time. So I wonder if that's what are they doing a similar, like, what is Jewish bluegrass?
Well, wouldn't I be the Gentile who should not define it? But it is, for instance, they take down to the river to pray, and going down to that river to pray, there's Abraham, there's Ruth, and there are all those Christians who were going down there too. So they really do bridge that gap.
Mm.
And so they sing in Hebrew and Yiddish.
Ooh.
They sing a beautiful song called Brothers and Sisters, which is one of the most unifying songs I know. And it's somewhat pronounced Hin Matov. And I play it, go back to radio, I play it on the radio because we are, we're at a time where we are talking about racism, and we should be talking about racism. But in my lifetime, it's only minutes before we blame the Jews for something.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just seconds before that's going to happen.
Yeah.
And for many reasons, without being too morose on a Sunday afternoon. But I always think it's very important to always be working on the anti-Semitic issues as well as on. It's just important to do that. So when I say it,
Yeah.
it makes me, it really makes me happy that this has happened. Is because I'm from a very anti-Semitic background.
Mm-hmm.
I have had a Jewish friend removed from my very own childhood home because they were Jewish. So
Really?
to finally combine those things, no, I didn't combine them, but to find them, the best I can do is pass them on to other people. The best I can do is get them on the radio, or
Mm-hmm.
and it's one of the things I love about Far West, and it's one of the things I think Mom Hen does so well is
Bridge gaps.
let's share.
Yeah.
Let's share. Let's find out who's out there, and let's bring us together. And
Yeah.
the highway women do such that the song "Crowded Table."
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's a
I
great
don't know if
group.
Amanda Shears wrote it or Brandy Carr, whichever one of them wrote it or they all wrote it. Is I think that's an anthem of our time.
Mm-hmm.
Let's
Yeah,
have a crowded table and let's keep finding space for everybody at the table. And
that's beautiful.
I think
Yeah.
that's what you all are doing with crimes against. I love crimes against folk as a name. I have no idea really what you meant by it, but I think crimes. I'm a criminal
I
because
love it. Well, you are
you
a
know
criminal. You are creating crimes against folk in your radio show because that's exactly where it came from. Is we actually played a festival, and this is nothing against the festival because it
No.
wasn't it did not a representation of the festival at all. But there was one gentleman at the festival who was on the board, and he got very offended that Ed was playing an electric guitar during our folk show, and in which was it was one of our better performances, honestly, of our career, and we killed it. And we played on the main stage, and we get off, and he came up and he harassed us because we were playing an electric guitar in our show, and which is hilarious because you probably already know this, Mama, that Bob Dylan already addressed this issue in 1968, and we're still here. And it's like, well, like, and Ed made a joke about, I guess we're just committing crimes against folk, but like, how is being shamed for playing an electric guitar be any different than being shamed for anything else that you do on a stage or during a performance? It's just
Yeah.
it's not right, and we need to bridge those gaps, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
So it's yeah, you're committing those crimes. I love it.
I think that it's just fine to play, to listen to, and to announce if you're a broadcaster or in a Millsap's coffee house, something like that, far west, that this is a traditional song.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
This is a traditional that probably means white or Celtic or European
Mm-hmm.
song. That's one set. Or there's a traditional song. How about klezmer music? Eastern European. Okay, that's a traditional song. How about the banjo? Where'd the banjo come from? Was it Ghana?
I can't remember.
Maybe Ghana?
Probably. It's probably
Okay,
one
I
of
can
those
look that
places.
up real quick. I'm
tradition.
curious.
So now let's go back. So there's African, and as you said earlier, Cuban, African. So I think we almost have to say traditional music, tradition. I am sure that had Bach lived, he would play bluegrass.
Oh,
I
he'd love it.
wouldn't you think? And Mozart would have run around and done
Yeah.
something on an electric guitar. He would have electrified his harpsichord, or it's just.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that we don't want to preserve some kind of traditional music that was traditional for some space and time. It's just, don't we want to know more? Don't we want to? Don't we have bigger ears than that?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Why? I mean, would you want anything to just stay the same? And we're constantly trying to grow as humanity. So why wouldn't we try to grow as music and genres? And I'm with you. Genre is so weird. That when people ask us what kind of music we do, it always like I shut down. I'm like, we finally Ed and I came up with an answer one day that we both really liked, and it's still not an answer, but we say we celebrate the different subgenres of folk music.
Yep.
So that's
We're not specific. We're not really specific. It's somewhat non-specific, but
You all are hard to pinpoint.
yeah.
When I first met you at Far West and I took your CD back, and for me it was love at first listen when I heard you the first time in the Millsaps coffee room. When I took it back, I went, oh boy, how am I going to talk the music director into getting this on the shelf? And where am I going to put it? So the first strategy was I just played it for a few weeks without it going through proper channels for a few months. And then I gave it to him and said, I really think this could be, alt folk.
mm-hmm.
And he's a good guy. This guy is great. It's not a complaint about him at all. It's just how do we do it?
Mhm.
Where do we
Yeah.
put people? Well,
All
now I'm
folk.
in the garage, right? And the
Yep.
station, as all stations, even the most commercial stations, are trying to figure out how to stay on air. And I'm big about, I try to raise money for only a few organizations because that's all I can do. But I do try to raise money for radio because that's how we get you on air.
Yep.
And then people forget to pay us or give us a donation because they pay for their Spotify so they can hear you for the first time, and then they go pay somebody else so they can keep hearing you.
Mhm.
So this is a really bad system. But terrestrial radio is important to get art, I think, to get artists played.
Yeah.
So we get you out. We got you out, and like I said, I'm in the garage, so I'm playing. There's a lot of music I don't have because I don't have the station library, but there's a lot of music I can play.
Yeah.
Nobody's stopping me, And
That's
so
kind of
there's a little
nice.
Joshua Bell, and there's just a little
Oh, cool.
classical in there too, and
I
there's
love
little
that.
jazz on some outros, and
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I
All
think
the
that
crimes.
yeah, I think that's okay. I think that's Shelley Siegel. Did y'all meet Shelley at Far West one year?
I
don't
don't
think
recall.
so.
So I found one of her CDs that I had that probably was lost at the radio station,
Yeah.
but I had my own copy, so I was able to get her on, get her up. It's good. It's good music. I thought about doing a whole show of. There is a very thin line between musicians that you know and musicians that you don't know because
Mhm.
there's so much music and it's so hard. You cannot hear all of it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
radio stations can't play all of it. And you can't find all of it in Spotify. And everybody's logarithm, Spotify, one time my logarithm's gospel, and then one time my logarithm is jazz, and then it's roots, and then it's classical lullabies, because that's how I go to sleep at night, is I hit sleepy lullabies and
Yeah.
listen to sleepy music. Or Cornell West. Cornell West is my nighttime story these days. Cornell West held church in Seattle this morning.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
I couldn't do it because we're doing this, but I went, darn, he's zooming in Seattle too. That's pretty.
Ah.
We can be interfaith and we can have interfaith and inner music.
Mm-hmm.
So how did y'all how do you all let people know about crimes against folk? How do people find out about that?
Well, we've got
We're still finding that out, honestly.
yeah. Mom's Hens we're on the Mother Hen promotions team. So Jeanette Lundgren is helping us get the word out on socials. Who I'm not sure if you saw the chat earlier, but she said earlier, I can do your socials. That's what she said to you.
Bless
Which
heart.
quick plug for Mother Hen promotions. I'll drop a link, but if you're looking for help with your social media, fantastic place to start looking because Jeanette knows a lot about socials and is always on the up and up for that. So we highly recommend her. But a lot of it is word of mouth still. Witherword spent so many years on tour and meeting so many different fans, and some of them have kept up with us. So, and a lot of them are watching right now. So we've kind of, they seem to enjoy the podcast format. So luckily, so right now we're still getting the word out with our fans from our music, and then also people that come on to listen to our guests on the show also will kind of pop in here and there. But as Ed said, we're still figuring out the rest.
Yeah.
Because promoting a podcast promoting music is a beast, but promoting a podcast is a whole different thing. And ours is a little bit of a different format since we have the live element and the post show as an actual podcast. So sometimes people are like, well, which do I do? And I'm like, both.
Yeah.
Either.
Well, it's people have asked me for years, why don't you? I mean, way years. I probably should have done it why aren't you telling stories on a podcast? Why? Well, because I don't have the technology, and and I had 1,000 reasons why I wasn't doing that. And then that train kind of left the station. And at this point, it for me, it seems like I should put some stories on Instagram rather than have a regular podcast. So if it flies through, it flies through. Or just visit other people
Yeah.
because you're already trying to figure out. I repeat, time is not a renewable resource.
Yeah.
You know, if somebody's already doing what you are doing, or what other people are doing, couldn't we work together? Couldn't we collaborate at this? Because
Mm-hmm.
if everybody's trying to do a podcast, if everybody's trying to get online, if you can't do it.
Yeah.
You can't listen to all of it. You just can't. So I'm glad you're doing it. I'm really glad you're doing it, and I'm really glad you're committing crimes against folk, because coming from Appalachian Mountains, I just can't imagine that any of those people who raised me up would think that you should only have one kind of music forever for the rest of your life,
Right.
because they were too busy getting, another something else strung against a washboard. Something, every child was given some kind of bowl and some kind of spoon to please hush up and sit on the ground and play, just do something. It was our entertainment. But there was always something new. There was always something new. That's somebody wrote up on your chat about West Africa. The banjo came from West Africa, came with slaves. Certainly, surely did. And people kept, a lot of slaves escaped from coming in from Charleston and coming in from Jamestown and Williamsburg, and got up into Appalachia, got up into those mountains. There was an underground railroad a long time. It dates way, way, way back, with people getting out and getting slaves out.
Yeah.
And so that music continued, and the experiment with that music continued. So, Charlie Poole, great piano player, Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
And we had, we had former slaves who were changing music in Appalachia, as well as the Wurtzes, who were Germans. They didn't want to be, people got up into Appalachia because they didn't want to be with other people, because other people were mean to them.
Yeah.
My people got up there because Oliver Cromwell was trying to take their heads off. They didn't want, the Germans got up there so they could play their accordions in peace.
Yeah.
Irish certainly were escaping. So people wanted peace up in those mountains, and they expressed it through music, and they used whatever they had to make music and create music. And if that is a crime against folk, then let's elevate crime to a custom.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
A custom.
I agree. One of the things that we like to have guests do on Crimes Against Folks, since we are telling our stories, is for them to share a story of their own, from their experience, whether it's from its performing, or a story they like to perform, or a story that just kind of rings around in their head that is kind of interesting. So I know we had talked about this beforehand, but I think there was a particular story you wanted to tell. If you still feel like telling that story, you are most welcome to.
Y'all want a story? I'll tell you what. Why don't you talk among yourselves for about 2 seconds, and let me take my friend here and throw her out the garage door.
Okay.
This is ridiculous, isn't it? This is one of the things that this will take 2 seconds. And while I'm doing that, think about what you know from 1968.
Okay.
And I'll be right back.
I don't know much from 1968.
I don't think we were born yet.
No, we were certainly not born yet. But I don't know much. I don't know much about 68.
All I know is Bob Dylan all
That was
but got
electric.
booed off stage.
Yeah, at Newport.
Oh,
I
that
think.
was good. I can hear you. Good. Ed, what year were you born?
Oh, look at the baby.
I was born 81.
Ashley, what year were you born?
83.
Okay, so
So we were
Okay.
not born in 68.
Yeah. I don't think
Yeah.
so.
okay, well, let me take you back to 1968. And we were singing songs like All You Need Is Love, and the Doors were doing Light Your Fire. Jimi Hendrix was electrifying us with Purple Haze. So some of you may sing Brown Eyed Girl, still sing Brown Eyed Girl or play it. Van Morrison had that coming out. Dr. King in the fall of 1968 was alive and rallying the forces. We were pretty sure that George Harrison was using Eric Clapton to lay down the tracks, the guitar tracks for While My Guitar Gently Weeps. Arthur Ashe was the first black tennis player to win. George Patterson was the absolute heavyweight champion of the world. Apollo 8 took humans to the moon for the first time. And we, of a certain age, were sure we could win everything and stop the Vietnam War. And there were a group of us in Virginia Commonwealth University, which is in Richmond, Virginia, the capital of the Commonwealth. It's an urban school, and we were giddy with the sense of belonging because we were in the drama department, and we were all, as people, so many people, artists and drama kids, we're all misfits. We're all in high school trying to figure out how to belong, and we don't feel like we belong. But we were in the school. And this school is, like I said, it's an urban school, Virginia Commonwealth University, VCU. And on the east side, it was bound by a large park. On the north side, it was bound by Monument Avenue with the trinity of bronze, majestic statues from the Confederate heroes. And to the south, there was this gargantuan building called the Mosque with turrets. And it was not at all anything you'd associate with the mosque. It was built by the Shriners, and they wanted something to stand out. And it does stand out with Greco Southern architecture. And then down the street, there was another gargantuan building that was to the west, called the Temple, which had nothing to do with Jewish anything. It was the Masons' lodge. It was the Masons' temple. And we figured that was probably that big so they could compete with the Shriners. And the temple was remodeled into the theater, and where the theater students had classes, and it was our sanctuary. And it was our sanctuary against the callousness of the Greek fraternities and the extraordinarily white German club, which promoted French cotillion dances, and the nerdiness of the science students, and the pedestrianness of the students who were going to be teachers. And we were of the arts. We were the drama students. And so the fall of 1968, we're standing in registration. That's how you registered. You didn't go online. You actually stood with a piece of paper. And up walks a young black woman, joins us. Everybody thinks she's probably in the custodial group, doesn't pay any attention. Then all of a sudden she opens up her purse and pulls out a registration form. And students in line turned around, and audible gasps were heard. Snares, snurs, slur. It was ugly. And the drama students walked right over to her. This was the first black student that ever set foot on that campus. And when we found out she was going to be a drama major, Well, that just added to our cachet of everything that we protested that was mainstream. We were really happy. And we were also happy because we could finally do one act plays like Bessie Smith, the blues singer who died because a white hospital wouldn't take her in after a wreck. And our professors were happy because perhaps we could do Raisin in the Sun now that we had one black actor, maybe. This is a period of time in 1968 where there are very few roles beyond, you know, I don't know nothing about Birth and No Babies from Gone with the Wind. There were not roles for them. So B came, and like happens with all people who don't have false barriers, people who work together, people who have common interests, people, we became friends. And B couldn't be in the dormitory. She lived at home, in the Churchill section of Richmond. And every day she got on the bus and she got off right there on Monument in front of Robert E. Lee, and she walks down to the Stonewall Jackson, and that's where you turned right and came up to the temple, and we all gathered by the bulletin board, and that's where the drama. We stood there with our turtlenecks because no self-respecting man in the drama department would wear a button-down collared Oxford shirt. And most people thought any man in the drama department was gay anyway, and of course they were gay. Well, and Charles Massey he didn't wait for anybody to accuse him of being gay. He was about 6'1", and he was the first man I ever knew that proclaimed his gayness long before Stonewall, the riots of Stonewall. And we would gather, and Charles was somewhat of a leader, senior year and everything. Well, one day we were by the bulletin board, and there's a poster from the school, and it announces the Harvest Ball. And there's going to be an election, and you nominate the prettiest girl, and whoever's the prettiest that gets the vote becomes the queen. And then there's 6 royal subjects. They get the next number of votes. And everybody nominates, and then everybody votes. And normally this was the kind of thing that the fraternities, the Greek fraternities and the German club, we'd do, and we'd just rip it off and not think about it. But that year, 1968, Charles rips it off, but he holds it and says, let's nominate B for the court. And we just laughed. You know, she has a snowball's chance in hell of getting any votes. And I just looked at him and said, B is like the raisin and the tapioca pudding. What are you going to try to do to this girl? And B was beautiful. I mean, she was beautiful. That wasn't the issue. She was probably 18 years old, and glowing skin, and deep set eyes, tall. But he convinced us the school would be furious. Nobody would expect it. It would take counterculture to a new level because it was counter everything. We're a bunch of Southern kids. But we think this is a good idea. And being basically, we were all white. B was the first person of color I ever went to school with. She walks up the steps, fresh out of Monument Avenue, catching her bus, and looks at us, and we just look at her, and we glom onto her and say, we've got this idea, what do you think? And I'd never seen a black person turn gray before. She stopped kind of breathing, and she didn't think this. But we talked to her, and she said, well, she'd have to talk to her parents. And we're this 18-year-old kid who's living at home. It's 1968. There were race riots were happening. But she comes back to school the next day and says, well, her parents think that this is a little tiny drama department kind of thing, and she wouldn't win anything, so just don't get noticed. So okay, well, we're drama kids, and so we galvanize ourselves, and we're armed with audacity. That's not a program. It was a real thing, and artists need a little dash, a little dose of arrogance. And you've got to have that to do a podcast and get an album made, and artists have to have it to think they'd ever go to Broadway or ever be cast in a show, or let alone have a movement happen. But that year, with that contest, we won something more precious than a Grammy. and it's not finished, but it really turned us around. So B's gonna run, and we all have our assignments. The girls are going to work in the dorms. The boys are going to work at their jobs, and they could get into the bars. So the guys were going to get not votes, and I had Monroe Terrace, which was a big, tall building, probably 14 stories, which was big at that time. And I would go at night because the dorms closed at 10 o'clock. Girls had to be in at 10 o'clock at night, which means I had a sitting audience. And I would go and knock on doors and say, would you consider voting for B. Smith? And some of them would laugh, and some of the girls would slam the door in my face. And a few of them would say, nobody's going to vote for her, but, I'll vote for her. And then I should have known better, but one night I get to this door, and why I should have known better is somebody had taken construction paper and cut out the letters Emmy loves Donnie, and then surrounded it with white Kleenex that had been crunched together like roses and made a heart. And I should have just kept walking. I really should have kept walking. But I knocked on the door, and this blue-eyed girl came, and she was blonde, and her hair was rolled perfectly on pink, squishy curlers. And I asked her to vote for B if she would consider doing that. The next day, she reported me to the dean.
Oh, wow.
Who called me in and said words like coercive and confrontive and un-American was in there.
Oh,
and he caught my attention with saying something about, I don't remember how he worded it. Kicked out of school was what he said. Well, I sort of finished all the 14 floors, and that was okay because we had to get photographs taken of B, and we got some of the photograph students from the fine art department to do that because there was going to be a poster. We got her on the poster, and it looked great. And then all of a sudden, the posters were being ripped down, and they were being defaced right over her picture, and there were ugly words. You can imagine what they were. And we were getting a little scared. We really got scared when there were 3 students, and they didn't have sheets over their head, but they shrouded themselves in white sheets, and they blocked B's entrance into the rehearsal studio. And so some of the guys started walking with her to class. And then it was time. It was time for the election, and they put the election boxes out, and we went back to work. We had a week to get all the votes we could, and we went into the quad, and we'd ask people to vote, and we'd go into the classes outside and I took the library door. I was the sentinel by the library. Are you going to vote? Would you consider vote? And we were just really full tilt boogie doing this, and suddenly there's a loudspeaker, which was like a World War II kind of siren, and the dean's voice comes on, and Mary Ann Moorman, come to the dean's office. So I was hauled back into the dean's office, and this dean had he had an Adam's apple that resembled a turkey. And so we started calling him Turkey Neff. And Turkey's just going full circle talking to me about the un-American activities. And I tried not to look at that Adam's apple because I wanted to laugh, and I didn't. But I said, you told me not to knock on any more dormitory doors, and I didn't. I haven't knocked on a one. And I was warned again I was going to be expelled from school. We got all the votes we could, and we're sitting in the temple by the bulletin board, and it's Friday, and it's going to be announced. And the hissy World War II siren is all the loudspeaker, and Turkey Neff is calling the stuff off, and there's, Mary Sue is going to be in the court, and Susie's going to be in the court, and there's no B. And we're sitting on the stairs, and the air's kind of gone out of our self-importance. Then all of a sudden, Turkey Neff comes back on and says, Queen this year will be B. Smith. Cuts it off.
Whoa.
Queen this year is going to be B. Smith.
Whoa.
We looked at each other. We were ecstatic. We were so full of ourselves. B looked a little nervous.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, and she didn't break down. She never cried until a few days later at the bulletin board. She didn't have a dress. She didn't have a ball gown to wear to the ball. And Charles Massey said that is no problem. He had plenty of things she could wear. And the costume designer said, no, no, no. We would take care of that. So we're the drama kids. We go into the costume. And the costume designer had a beautiful autonomous kind of gown, satin gown that they had used for Juliet in Romeo and Juliet. And the costume people worked. They added beads and seed beads around it. And the day of the ball, we all gathered pretty much in the afternoon, and there probably was a little liquor that had been snuck in. And we're in the costume shop, basically sewing Bee into this thing and convincing her to wear rhinestones to be her escort. We have enough going on. He can't do that. So we get our ribbons and bows, and we go on out down to the temple, and we're going to the mosque because, of course, that's where the harvest ball is going to be. We open the doors, and we stop laughing. And Charles Massey takes Bee by the arm and pulls her over to the side of the building, and all the guys kind of stand by the girls and push us against the building so that our dresses don't catch fire from the row after row of burning crosses that are lining the street. And we get up the street, we're relieved that the crosses have stopped, and then we see why there are no more crosses because we turn to go to the mosque, and there's a row of reserve army soldiers standing there with their rifles at rest. And we don't know, are they going to shoot us or are they here to protect us? And some of the guys went and they opened the big brass doors of the mosque, and we went on into the ballroom. And as soon as we're there, there's an upper tier, and the largest Confederate flag you have ever seen tumbles down from the ceiling. And Turkey Neff and the faculty are up in the front on a stage, and they say, we're going to start by announcing the Queen and her court. So each girl and her escort go up to the front, and Charles has got Bee by the arm, and her name is called, and they take her to the front. And she's tall, so she has to sort of bend down a little bit, and they put the crown on her head, and nobody applauds. So about 20 or 30 of us that were there, we were yelling and yahooing, and Charles is not letting her move. He is taking that moment. He is owning that stage. And as soon as she turns around to face the crowd, the band plays Dixie. And those of us from the drama department, I think, found the drama and the unfinished work, but we heard those words in a different way. Way down south in the land of cotton, old times there are not forgotten. Look away, look away, look away, Dixieland. In Dixieland, I'll make my stand. And on that line, collectively, as if we had one heart and one mind, we took Bee by the hand. We all took each other's hand. We made a great big circle, and we kept repeating that one line, I'll make my stand. I'll make my stand. And that dance, we made a stand. We took a caper, and for many of us, it turned into a cause. We were royal subjects, and we were so proud of our queen who shimmered. She was beautiful, and we danced. We danced on the night of the harvest ball when for just a minute the forces of good won, though the work's not done.
Wow. That is an incredible story.
That was really moving.
Wow.
1968, and I didn't think about the story. I didn't think about it until you all asked me to do this. podcast. And I was going to tell you this, I'm not a musician and you don't want me on this podcast. And then Ashley, I don't know what she said, but she said something that made me go, on the other hand, you never
Talked
ask
her
a
into it.
storyteller. If you're talking to a storyteller, there's always, I thought, well, maybe y'all would like that story. Or maybe that story would speak to you, which is, of course, what a
Mama,
storyteller.
we want you on the podcast because you're not a musician and we're here to bridge the gap.
Ah.
Just going to bring that full circle.
Well, thank you very much. And it is. There's a lot of music in my life. I don't have your skill and your talent, which is why I tell stories. But it's there's a lot of music. Music earmarked the '60s. Music. John Lewis said it. Joan Baez was the one who sang "We Shall Overcome" at the March of 1963.
Oh wow.
Peter, Paul, and Mary, who we make fun of in the folk music. What are that? Well, Dr. King wanted them, and they were there. And so was Mahalia Jackson, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Mahalia Jackson belonged in the center of that march. And that was a little before my time. I was too young to go to that. But Richmond is the heart of the Confederacy. And when Ashley was talking to me about crimes against folk, I went, oh my God. Oh my God, that bus stop is right where the monuments have been torn down.
Yep.
That story, there were monuments there. When I first told that story, there were monuments there. But you are hearing that story in a place where those statues have come down.
Wow.
Yeah, they're gone
And
now.
that has changed. But Arthur Ashe was given a monument in Richmond. And I'll save you some Arthur Ashe stories for another time. But that's
incredible
that's
stories.
that street. That's where it was. The Temple Theater was just a few blocks from the street.
Wow.
And just as a footnote, B. Smith is still in Richmond. She has made her living as an actress and in advertising.
Oh wow.
So she's done
That's
quite well.
awesome.
And her family stayed there and she stayed there. And so things from the drama department worked out for B. Smith.
That's
But
fantastic.
a lot of yeah. So there's your story for the day. There's a story for you.
Thank you, Auntmama. Auntmama's an incredible storyteller. There are so many more stories where this comes from. In fact, maybe you can. And well, Auntmama, she. So we're on the Far West month, right? So we know her because she MCs the Millsaps Coffee House event that happens out Far West, and she also hosts the there's a new name, the Storyteller Expo, but it has a different name at Far West. It's what? Can you remind me of the name? Or is that it?
Open Words.
Open Words.
Yeah. That's I got to see that last year.
Yeah.
And it was because of course our good friends Rick and Laura were there, and Rick was presenting a story as well. And of course I didn't have anything left to do, so I went along with them, and I got to see the whole thing. And it was incredible.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the
and
Open Words Expo. And you were talking about Jeanette earlier. Jeanette really brought this to Far West, and somewhere along the way she found me, and it was very kind of the music community to add Open Words Expo and to keep Open Words. And I hope it's become part of because as music connects and stories connect. And the one, Ed, you're talking about, I'd never heard Rick Hall before, but what a dynamic story. And he was on Crimes Against Folk, right?
Yep, we had both of them on. I think it was the third or fourth show, and they shared one of their little other small stories about Roger Daltrey.
Yeah, and he has a podcast now.
Yep.
That he co-hosts with Laura, but he tells stories kind of as the meat of it, and it's called So Says Rick.
So Says Rick.
Yep.
So Says Rick. Yeah, you can find it on all the podcasty things.
Yep.
It's
Okay,
really, really
Rick,
good.
you can invite me to be on your podcast because I just don't think the world needs one more podcast. I just don't. I just can't imagine that.
Well, thank you for being here, and we have one more question for you
Yep.
before we say goodbye that we ask all of our guests, and it's kind of become the our favorite question. I don't know why. It's silly, and it tells you a lot about a person, I think. And sometimes, so are you ready? That's all I'll say about it.
Okay, I'm terrified. Terrified. I mean,
Okay,
this
you
is so
should be. No, it's not that scary. So the question is, if you could have any superhero power, any superhero power, whether you can make it up or an existing one, what would it be?
if I had a superhero power,
Superpower,
I would
superhero
have the
power.
power to teach empathy to everyone who could then teach it to everyone else.
Mm, that's a good one.
That's a very good one.
That's
Because
a
I
good.
think
It's
I
tough.
don't know how to teach empathy. I mean, the
It's tough.
closest
It's tough to teach empathy. Like corporations basically, because I used to work in like tech support, and you have to. They basically try to teach you how to be empathetic, like fake empathetic. Like that's kind of the. So that's kind of part of their metrics, is they want to
Interesting.
make sure you can connect with the customer and make sure they feel that you understand what they're going through and feel what they're going through. That is a big metric for a lot of people, but it's really that is exceedingly tough to do. So yeah, if you could just teach to anybody and then it kind of spreads, like that'd be amazing.
That
I'd
is a
I'd
beautiful
like
one.
that, and if you can make that possible, Ashley, I'm all for it.
All right, I'll work on it. Well, I think maybe Ed's onto something. What if you teach how to fake it and then eventually it becomes real? I don't know.
Maybe.
Would that be a thing?
Sure, why not?
I, I,
Maybe it's a little tougher there,
Great
but
idea, Ed. If anybody could do it, you probably could. So please fake it till we make it,
yeah,
because I think we're at a place where we have people who are very angry in this country, and their war cry is to save a nation. And when they say save a nation, they mean put those statues back on Monument Avenue.
right.
We have another war cry in this nation that says, please have mercy and please be empathetic. And I want that to win.
Yeah, me too.
yeah.
And I do think, and one of the things I love that y'all are doing for Far West Connects is if we can connect around some things, maybe maybe music is the answer. Maybe music will bring us empathy. I hope so. And thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of
I really
course.
appreciate it.
Yeah, we were looking forward to this one.
Yeah.
So,
Thanks for tugging on all of our heartstrings with that amazing story.
yeah.
I was watching the comments, and everyone was very, very moved by that. And it's just like you said, I miss you. It's so nice to see you and hear you. And this is like kind of the only way we get to hang out with our friends anymore. So.
Yeah.
Or your family. It's the only way I see my family. It's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, and good luck with what you're doing. I hope you and Ed get to keep singing together and with your other folks. And I love seeing you when I do on Instagram. And Ed, now that I know what a technical genius you are, I'll call you 14 times a day and drive you nuts. But
I would expect
other
nothing
people,
less.
good. And I'll play you
That's
on
what I've
radio.
been doing in the 10 years we've been friends, and he's still friends with me. So.
And if there are musicians who are listening who have CDs and they're good, ask Ashley and Ed how to get them to me, or send a file. I
Yeah.
don't have to have hard copy, and you don't have to have 30,000 different songs. You got one that's good, got two, send me a file. I'll try to get it
For
on.
sure. We'll happily do that.
Yeah.
All right, y'all take care.
All right.
Thanks,
You
Aunt
too.
Mama.
Bye.
Bye.
See you soon. Bye bye now.
I hope so. All right. That's Aunt Mama Mormon
Mama Mormon, Mormon, an incredible storyteller and
and
just
radio show
really
host.
radio show host, just a really incredible talent.
I put
And
the link in our chat and we'll put in the
Ah.
show notes, but it is kbcs.fm/programs/Sunday-folks. That'll get you to her show, which is on Sundays and archived for 2 weeks after each show.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, she kind of. I remember when I chatted with her a little bit before today. She kind of mentioned, "Yeah, I just think I'd want to tell that story." I'm like, "Yes, perfect. Please tell that story."
What a story. Wow. Did everybody else, did their heart stop like 3 times?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh, God. I'm so glad I don't live in 1968.
I mean, yeah, but you know what? It's this is the thing is that it's nice to hear that story because honestly, there are points where it's not that much different right now.
Yeah.
Like it gives a bit of perspective. It's like, wow, that could have been 2 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
Like this is the kind of thing that we're still dealing with, 60 years after the civil rights movement started. So I think it's interesting to hear though a story about what people, what people tried to do for, black people and
Yeah.
back then. I'm sure there are many instances of groups of people like that drama department who would try to do something similar, and maybe it fared better, maybe it fared worse,
Yeah.
so I think it's an
I'm-
interesting exercise in allyship, I would
Yeah.
say. So it was really nice. It was really nice to hear that whole story. I was looking forward to that.
Yeah.
So
That was really important. It took quite the turn, did it, when she's like, oh, in
Yeah.
1968, all the things that were going on, and she was listing them. And I was like, wow, yeah, there was a lot going on, and I wasn't sure where it was going to go from there. So that was
yeah,
a great setup, and yeah, I'm glad you weren't alive in 1968, Ed.
yeah. There though it's so funny because I have a lot of love for that decade's music.
Yeah.
I can't. It's sometimes like I can't listen to anything else. Like it's just whatever, anything that sounds even remotely '60s style, I'm in. Whether it's
Yep.
the folk stuff or it's the pop stuff or like even the R&B stuff. Like when you think about somebody like say Sharon Jones, for example, who had built a part of her career on sounding almost exactly like the 60s R&B stuff. And I'm like, this is amazing,
Yeah.
So it's just like anything from that's even sounds like it's from that era, I'm a fan of. But if I had been alive during then, I don't know if I would have had the same affinity for it. Maybe not.
Well, maybe though, because most of that music was singing about change. I mean, the musicians
Yeah.
were really like the drama students that Mama was talking about. It's the artistic folks that are the majority of them are looking for change and moving forward and beyond things that aren't fair.
Yeah, and injustices and everything like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's true.
So, and it's just, it's just a reminder too. I know I don't mean to make this podcast become political, but since this isn't really political, that's the thing. So this is about
Right,
change.
it's not politics.
It's not politics.
Human,
It's about
human decency. That's
Yeah.
what I hear. That's what I've seen. when
human
people post,
decency,
and I'm like,
kindness.
yeah,
Yeah, this has nothing to do with politics, and it's the problem with the Confederate flag and the statues, and a lot of people don't understand why they need to be taken down or why the Confederate flag needs to not be celebrated anymore when it was a thing of the South. And it's like, because it's what it stood for at the time, and we need to move on from that.
Yep.
Because nobody wants that anymore. I think the majority, whether most people aren't even going to admit it, if they do, most people wants to move on from that.
mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And so I think the idea of preserving it for history is good if you're going to bring all of it along with you. You don't get to cherry pick it if you want to preserve it for history. You got to look at all of it and then realize, oh wait, maybe this was a really bad idea.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it would be like trying to say, burning a burning cross but it was a sign of the tide's good now. Like, no, it's not.
No.
It's what it stood
never
for.
been
Like
good.
a KKK, the white outfit. Like
Yeah.
that's not okay anymore. That
No.
was, we're moving on.
Yeah, exactly.
Moving on from those things.
Exactly.
We're trying to. Really hard, some of us.
So let's move on to our tips and tricks section.
Yeah, enough of the heavy stuff, eh?
Yeah, we'll kind of throw out a few tips on effective networking so that you can, when you go to a conference like this, or if you are attending something virtual, some of these can apply as well.
Yeah.
I'll start first.
Okay.
The first thing to do is really just find the conference that kind of fits for you. Like we've been to a couple of different ones. We've been to NAM, and we've been to Far West. Have we been to any others?
I've been to APAP.
Oh yeah, you've been to APAP. That's
Yeah,
right.
which is a New York City conference for theaters.
Yeah, like concert, like kind of small, like medium to large size venues.
Yeah.
Would you say?
Mhm.
And so if you're going to something, if you're going to a conference, a lot of times you're putting down a lot of money too. So you really do want to find out which one is good for you, and then just go to it. Like, don't be afraid of really trying to just go, and yeah, not worrying about whether or not you might fit in or you might not fit in, because I mean, as you know, Auntmama said, we are kind of difficult to categorize as far as a genre goes. So maybe people wouldn't consider us traditional folk or folk at all.
Yeah.
But so many people had told us about Folk Alliance in general, and then Far West even more specifically, that we were just like, well, I guess we should just try to go, because why not? And we wound up going to Far West, and it was, I think, one of the better decisions we've made as a duo, because it was so low key that it didn't really wear us out from networking too much. It didn't really, we could still be comfortable playing. We got a lot of playing time out of it. So I think, finding that kind of a comfortable environment is important. And so really you won't know until you just go. We resisted for a couple years.
Yeah.
And then we finally just said, well, look, let's just do it. And we wound up really getting a lot out of it. So I think if a lot of people are suggesting to you, hey, you should try to go to this conference, then you should actually seriously consider it.
Yeah, even though it might be a little, and it's kind of expensive. So if you obviously have to have the funds to do it, but if you do have the funds to do it, we totally recommend it, because it really does open a lot of doors for you.
Yep.
The next one is networking online. Like Ed mentioned, it's kind of, I think if we weren't in COVID times right now, this segment would probably go a lot differently, but we have to take that into consideration now, and you absolutely can network online.
Yeah.
There are so many communities that have existed and sprung up since COVID because people can't get to the concert. So you want to make sure that you're in these communities and you're alive and you're going, hey, no, I'm still here. I'm still playing, and or if you're a new artist, like, hey, who are you, and how can I become a part of this community? One of the biggest mistakes I see as far as that goes is specifically on BandLab. A lot of people will jump on the live shows and the communities and things like that, and they go, play my song, play my song, play my song. And you'll get all of these requests in your inbox. Hey, will you listen to my song? Will you listen to my song? Slow down. Start by doing something for the community first. Listen to their music. Go to a bunch of people who are in this community, go to their links and listen and comment to all of as many songs as you can. You will be amazed at how much you get back. You get back what you put in on everything.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of Facebook groups that are fantastic. I'm going to plug my own real quick. It's called MEG, Musician Engagement Group. I run it with Jeanette Lundgren, and we just picked up a couple other great administrators. That's a hard word. And it's a small group of musicians that just want to support each other's music. So you can go on there and kind of join in and drop links and say, hey, it's kind of like, yeah, I want to hear your music. Will you please listen to mine? So so you're not like just sending a bunch of people a bunch of stuff, say, hey, listen to my track. It's like, no, I'm going to listen to your track and 10 other people's if you'll just listen to mine too. It's a really great way to support your different musicians across all the social media platforms. And there are a ton of music groups out there. Just go on Facebook, and search for it. Just type them in the search box and groups, musicians, see what music support, music engagement, any of that, see what comes up. And this goes beyond musicians, because first of all, if you're a fan and you're looking for that more cool indie music, this is a great way to find those indies. If you're in another genre, if you're not a musician, let's say you're a lawyer even, and you want to connect with more lawyers for possible whatever opportunities. I know nothing about law. I'm just saying that's a great opportunity. There's so many amazing opportunities for you to network with communities online, including anything social. Social networks are all about engagement. So
Yep.
Put something in, you'll get something out.
Absolutely. All right. Next, come up with an icebreaker when you're at a conference. That can really help, especially if you deal with social anxiety, like we both deal with it ourselves. Yep. And so, coming up with something that is an icebreaker can really help. One of the things that a lot of people do at Far West in particular is they have cards with their performances on them. That helps a lot, because it can kind of it'll show all your performances. You can even have a little bio on there and all that kind of stuff, and it's a good way to icebreak. But what we did the first year, again, which is something Auntmama also alluded to, was we made promotional tote bags.
Yep.
And we just gave them out for free. So when we had a spot in the networking center, we put the bags out and just said, hey, take a bag. Or when we were around, walking around, we had them with us and say, hey, why don't you have a bag? And then we can just kind of, mention who we are and, where we're playing. We can also give them another card. I think we may have thrown cards and stuff in there as well. And so it's a good way to kind of break the ice, get a conversation going. Doesn't have to be about you. It can just be a way to say, hey, here's the thing. Who are you? What's your deal? Or it can also be a way for people to approach you, to be like, wow, hey, what are these tote bags about? That's a really good way. That happened a lot, actually.
Yeah, and even in the following year, and even Jeanette said, anything. It doesn't have to be purple tote bags. If you can come up, use your creativity and come up with something that's going to make you stand out at the conference, yep. It really does work. And this was something I really wanted to do, and I had mentioned to Ed before we got to the conference, like, let's do something that nobody else is doing. Let's make our own tote bags and hand them out. And I mean, it cost us a little bit of money, but it wasn't too bad. No. And it was a really great promotional tool.
Mm-hmm. It actually worked out better than we expected it was going to.
Yeah. In fact, people were still carrying around in the following year's conference.
Yep. And and more importantly, people remembered us because of that. Like, people said, oh yeah, you're even though they didn't remember our name, they're like, oh yeah, the tote bags. Like, so, all right. Yeah. Next one.
All right. So next is this is a something that Ed and I do from time to time on the
Yeah.
road, even when we have time for it. So this is an in-person one, but this is specifically for musicians. But again, you can find something similar in your own industry. Like go to the open mics and jam sessions, meetup groups, whatever that thing is for you. If you go and you connect with these people, and I hear a lot of musicians say things like, oh, but I don't want to just go meet a bunch of other musicians because I need to make fans. It's like that couldn't be farther from the truth, because the musicians, that's your army, man.
Yeah.
Like build your army and go in together, and we do share information with each other. It's not, if you don't really know the person, you're not going to just like willingly give out, some contact that's important to you from somebody who just randomly asks you that you've never met before on Facebook. But if you generate a friendship with somebody that, say, you meet at Far West, yeah, you might just do that. And I remember Lisa Richards. She's Australian, and we met her at Far West, and we did a concert with her. And I said, hey, Lisa, do you want to meet me for like a drink or a salad before our show next week? Because I'd love to exchange booking contacts with you. So if you want to come back to the States, I'll have some information for you. And if I ever go to Australia, you'll have some for me. And she said yes. And we absolutely did that. I'm talking again about going to a conference, that now I'm talking about open mics and jam sessions, but you never know what you're going to get out of that situation. There was one open mic Ed and I went to in Denver, and it was it Swallow Hill? Was that the name?
Yeah, I think so. The one
Okay.
at the church
It was like a
or
school.
school. Yeah.
Yeah, we went to an open mic. We played one song. And then from that, we got invited to a really cool showcase to do afterwards. So stuff like that, you're probably going to get something out of it if you show up and you say, hey, I'm here. Like um, I know a lot of people who do that. They go to the open mics, and that's how they get their gigs and stuff. Because
Yeah.
the booker might be there, or someone might be like, "Hey, have you thought about playing here? Because I think you'd be really good at that." You never know what's gonna happen. We've met people who've brought us in all kinds of things. I don't know if you can come up with any other examples, Ed, but
Well, you get a lot of gig leads, like
yeah,
you mentioned. Like we probably wouldn't know half the house concerts we've played if another fan at another concert or an open mic hadn't told us about it. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So I think that's what you can also expect, is that if somebody's there who just kind of hangs around, they really like you, they're like, hey, you should consider playing this. They may not be another musician, they might just be a fan, but of course fans go to a lot of concerts, and so they're like, hey, you should play this. I know this person. Let me connect you to.
Yeah.
That's one thing you might get out of it, and that's one thing you'll get from connecting with other musicians at these things as well. As far as the online component, again, there are a lot of Facebook groups and meetup groups and other
Open mics.
open
They're online
mics.
open mics now.
They're
a lot of
moving
them.
online. So,
Yeah.
get your
Zoom.
streaming set up together and try to get in on some of them, and you'll meet a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, and finally, when you get contact info, add it to your phone, add it to your Palm Pilot, whatever you're using nowadays, and follow up. Like take a couple of days, like wait a couple of days after the conference, maybe, and so that everybody can get home and get settled. And then start emailing, start maybe texting or calling or whatever you do, however you feel comfortable following up. Follow up with them and just said, hey, it was really nice to meet you at the conference. Gonna check out your stuff. Kind of just reach out and make sure you maintain that connection, because it's really easy for people to just forget you immediately after. These conferences are such whirlwind events that it's really easy to just go home and rest for 2 days and then completely forget everybody you've met. So it'll help you remember these people as much as it will help them keep you in their mind. So make sure as soon as you can, I would maybe wait a day or two to let everybody get settled. start following up with people, and remind them who you are, how you met, and keep that line of communication open, because it could pay off pretty immediately if you do. So you'll want to make sure you can do that. Try following up at least once a week until you hear back. And then from there you can kind of gauge maybe your level of kind of engagement with each of the contacts. But if it helps, make a schedule somewhere of following up on a calendar or something. If you have trouble following up, it's easy to just put a bunch of events on a calendar and say, hey, follow up with so and so a week later. That's always a good way to do it too, so you can stay organized as well.
Yeah, that's a big trick I do. I always put it in my calendar so I know when to follow up.
Yeah,
The follow-up's really... And I want to respond to this comment from Alice real quick, because, Alice knows me very well and says, I would not have thought that Ash had to deal with social anxiety. I was always pictured her as very outgoing. It's true. And I know that comes as a surprise, because I think social anxiety and like I'm an extrovert, like big time extrovert, but I think a lot of extroverts still deal with social anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
It's really strange because, get me up on a stage and give me a microphone and I'll be able to talk to everybody in the room and sing all day long, no problem. But put me into a room where now I have to like meet a bunch of people, and the same thoughts come into my mind that come into an introvert's mind. Nobody wants to talk to me. I'm not cool enough. I'm not, as good as that person over there. It's the same stuff, and you just have to just mute it down, right? And really, that's one of the struggles with going to a conference if you deal with social anxiety, like Ed does, and like I do. Especially because mine is not obvious, but it's easier for me being an extrovert because I can just, I can still do it. I can still walk into the room and go, and just kind of spark a conversation. But sometimes I'm just kind of awkward about it or nervous or shy. But I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing. It's
I get it.
Specific thing. But there are times when I haven't, where I've needed to go to an event or something, and I've just clammed up and just didn't go because my social anxiety got the best of me. But for the most part, I try not to let it get in my way too much. But
Yeah.
I think a lot of people feel that way. Right? It's kind of nerve-wracking walking to a big room with a bunch of people talking, and you don't know anybody, and you just assume everybody knows each other and is best friends for years. Well, they probably don't know each other either.
Oh yeah, that's the thing. It's very much just a mind game.
Yeah.
That your brain plays with you. So it's really that's why it's nice again to have something like a little icebreaker, or maybe something a little quirky that people can ask you about them, because then they make the first move. It's usually a lot easier to talk to them if they're making the first move.
That's true. Or sometimes we knew. If you know somebody in the room, it kind of becomes this moment of like, oh,
Yep.
thank God. So if you know of a friend that's going to the conference, try to meet up with them, because eventually you'll split off. You will, and so to walk into the room with somebody can really help.
Yeah, absolutely. All right.
Yeah.
There's a couple of questions and comments here from Jeanette. For when there is a live conference, we do have the Larman Scholarship for artists who may not otherwise be able to attend the conference. It pays registration.
Yeah, just a note. So if you don't think you can afford to go to a conference, do look for the scholarships, because they exist. Like Far West, like Jeanette is saying, does have one called the Larman Scholarship.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
I think
sure
FAI has one as well. You can get in for They have like fellowships and scholarships that'll help pay for the registration.
Yeah, or we have friends from the UK who ended up going to Folk Alliance, the big mothership, and they kind of went under the disguise as press, but they also used it for their icebreaker. So, and they also got a documentary of some sort out of it. So they went with their cameras and they just started interviewing everybody that they could who was at the conference. And number one, they got to go for free. Number two, that was their icebreaker.
Yeah.
And number three, they had a cool thing to edit and take home with them. So it was really, if you can think of something creative like that, it really is going to help.
Yeah, that helps a lot.
Yeah, they got a trifecta of perks.
Let's see, from Alice. Public radio stations were traditionally a portal for independent music. Do they still play a role, or are they outdated? No, public radio, community radio stations are still an excellent way to get your music out there. I mean, we've even been on live shows at community radio at least 3 times, I think.
And I've had people who were listening come, like, because usually we've tried to do them when we have a show in a city where we may not have too many fans. We'll go try and find a community or public radio station that would have us on to promote our show. And people do come out, which means they're listening.
Yeah, and they're more likely to play your music, and you're more likely to be able to appear on their station, which is really cool. Like, you kind of get the best of both worlds. At that point, you get a live set, or a live set and possibly an interview and promotion for your event, and also then they can put your music in rotation. Community radio is a big one. College radio, they're starting to kind of slip out of the hands of the colleges a little bit. So you may have better luck with community radio stations. But yeah, getting on public radio and community radio is still a really good way to promote yourself, and it's still really easy to do. So definitely consider that if you are going to be in a city, or if you've got a new release, just send it out to a bunch of community radio stations across the country. It's very likely they'll play it, probably more so than a lot of the big stations. So,
yeah. Yeah, and then here's Jeanette again commenting about how the Moose Mobile came to Far West in a press pass, but did not allow full entrance to certain parts of the conference, like the breakfast and luncheon. I know because I arranged it. Jeanette, I'm not sure if you had listened to the first part of the show. I don't think you were here yet, but that's so funny that you're mentioning this, because we actually told the story of Rob Ellen and the Moose Mobile for our story today, because we go way back with Rob Ellen, and he actually ended up contacting you because we saw him at a show in Denver and told him that he should be going to the conference.
yeah.
Oh, she was there. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Well, then it's related. Then I'm just repeating myself because I love that story so much. All right. Well, we have gone way over our time because Aunt Mama is so engaging, so we couldn't help but talk to her for too long.
Yeah.
But I think we should wrap this show up with a song. A song that Alice had requested earlier, and we didn't play because we said we were going to end our show with it. So we are going to do that now. So once again, thank you to our patrons. If you are not a patron yet, we highly encourage you to go to patreon.com/crimesagainstfolk. Again, that's patreon.com/crimesagainstfolk. And we are now doing mini concerts before each live podcast on Sunday at about 12:15 to 12:20-ish for maybe 20 to 30 minutes. And all that's $5 a month. So just $5 a month and you get a mini concert, and it's exclusive to Patreon, so you will not be able to access it unless you are supporting us for just a little bit. And it's weekly. You only pay $5 for the month, but you'll get this mini concert every Sunday. as a result. And there are other tiers and other fun things you can do too if you want to support us just a little bit. There's even a dollar option. So whatever you guys have to give, if that's nothing, we're super, super happy that you're listening to us. We ask that everybody leaves us a review on Spotify or iTunes or wherever you can leave your reviews. That also helps us out a lot if you want to support us that way. But we thank you guys. This was a really fun show, really moving show. If you missed Auntmama's story, you should listen to it. She's like the queen of the storytellers. So thank you. Thanks, Yvonne. Thanks, Jeanette, Alice, Glenn, Danuta, Eric, everybody else who's still here. Our silent listeners. We'll leave you with this song. This is called The Sanctuary.
One, two, three, four. We had a choice to make. We had a world to save. A sacrifice was all that it would take. Without a pause for thought, a soul-bound weapon sought to vanquish evil from the sacred place. Her life was given up so that we would endure. The world we had was base and impure. Anew, we made with love, we plant the seeds and tend. The sanctuary will grow again. Sun shall start through the trees and dance among the breeze. They strike my face with a familiar ease. This forest gave me life and opened up my eyes. Here I was born and here I hope to die. The sun, to catch the sun, I climbed the redwood arms to guard the canopy from our foes. It's true, I knew that I had been immortal once, but this was not the fate that I chose. Stoic resplendency enshrined among the leaves, their veins connected to the history. 1,000 years, embracing nature's tears to give their shelter to the creatures here. This light I give to you, they gave to me before, to ward the forces that can restore. My son, my only son. Today becomes the day. The sanctuary calls you a man. All right.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks everybody for joining us. If you're on the level of patron support, we're going to do the post show just right after this. Check your messages for the post show link. Aside from that, we will see you next Sunday.
Thank you, guys.
Bye,
Happy week.
everyone.